Hi, hello there. I'd usually say hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers, but this is just a chance to tell some tales of when I first came to Thailand. For the record, as it were. So yeah, just thought I'd share some stories. I was just having some memories of when I first came to Thailand. Spent more than half my life here. I'm now in Phuket. Originally started in Bangkok. So hello, one man and his detector. How's things? Good, thank you. It's been a nice weekend. Good morning from Canada. Whale oil beef. Hi. Well, it's Sunday evening here. Just gone midnight, I think. So yeah. Thanks for coming along. Hope you're all doing well. I know some of you are experiencing brass monkey weather. Don't envy you. Yeah, it's just been wonderful to be with the family today. And so again, if any of you are listening that helped me get back from the UK to here, I'm so grateful for that. And I'm reminded every day of just how nice it is to be back with the family. It's okay, 6 o'clock in Denmark. Okay, hello, John. All right, my man. Okay, hope you're having a good Sunday. Yeah, such a shame to hear that there's nothing going on in the UK, whereas here, things are kind of trundling along. People are out and about. You can go places. People are earning a living, and yeah, it's pretty much back to normal. And so the whole kind of the mask thing and all that, it's going to be a trend that will gradually die off, I'm pretty sure. Here, hi TP, good to see you. It's just one of those things. It's just another trend. Christopher, hi, good evening from Switzerland. Wow, that's wonderful. We've got people all over the plane just joining in. That's fantastic. And hi, Keith Anthony. All right. Yeah. So I hope you don't mind me just kind of, rather than pissing and moaning, I'd rather just kind of recount some of the, travel. Well, obviously travel isn't what it used to be. And I was thinking back, you look at of course, after 9/11, travel restrictions were brought in, and it's of course it's become crazy now. Most of you watching probably know that I was stuck in the UK and couldn't get back to my family because of all these restrictions, and just had to do had to go through a lot of procedures just to be able to get here, and it was thanks to the help of many generous people that I was able to get back and on that very costly journey. Anyway, it's totally different to how it used to be. So I was remembering, this has got to be, gosh, how I came to Thailand in my very early 20s. I remember I was 21. I was working in Paris when I was about 21, so 22, maybe 23. I was here. I remember finishing that and working in the UK just to get some bread. And hi, just say hi to everyone. Let me come back because then I stay on track with the story. Yeah. So early 20s, some friends of mine had spent 3 months down on the islands, Koh Samui and Koh Phangan, with the full moon parties and stuff. And so they would recount these stories, and they were saying how wonderful. This is when I think I was about 18 when I was hearing these stories about what a wonderful time these older friends of mine had in the islands, the southern islands. Phuket is on the kind of, as the southern south west coast, but the Samui and Koh Phangan, where the full moon parties are on the other coast, on the east coast. So they're quite far from here, but you'd have to go across the mainland and then take some ferries and things like that. So anyway, it was, I apart from that, I knew nothing about Thailand, absolutely nothing. But there was just something that was drawing me here. Obviously I knew it was kind of, Buddhist country, and and again, I'd heard these stories from my friends of just saying how generous and nice the Thais were, how welcoming they were. And of course, at that time, you could you could have gotten on a boat or something and just kind of maybe made your way across the world. These were the kinds of things I was looking at. I was stuck in France thinking, oh, I've got to, okay, I want to go and see Asia. There's how am I going to do it? And I ended up learning, doing a course so I could be a teacher. I could actually teach English as a foreign language. So I have that certificate to this day. I did that in Paris, and that was the idea was that I would go around the world teaching English, and I'd earn money as I went. That felt like the ideal solution. The course was quite expensive, and it's very intensive, and you learn a lot. It's interesting actually to learn about your own language. You get asked these questions about these different parts of the English language, and you're just kind of like, you don't even know why they're being asked, and then you slowly, gradually get to understand. You actually understand the nuances of the English language. It's very useful, of course. Then you can teach it because you're going to get those kind of questions. Anyway, so there were no other plans apart from get to Bangkok. So after saving up some money, the first airline I got was Aeroflot, and in those days you could smoke on the planes and everything. It was just in Thai they say sabai sabai. It's like just easy going, sabai sabai, whatever, relaxed. So of course this is before 9/11. This is before all of this stuff. It was just really relaxed. So when we got on this old aircraft, no idea what kind of aircraft it was, a big one, but it was very old. The Aeroflot flight, cheapest you could find to get to Thailand. So according to the ticket, there were 3 stops. We stopped about 5 times on the journey. We had no idea where we were. Sometimes you look down and just see desert and just mountains. You have no idea where you are, and you land in these places and they don't tell you. You're not allowed off the plane. This is not long after the fall of communism, really. So even Moscow airport was it's this massive structure, but there's nobody there. There was just us, these people on this plane, and kind of about 20 of us, backpackers kind of thing, just waiting for this flight. We waited for hours. It was, connections were just, very haphazard. But yeah, of course, you're at this airport and you're just seeing these army jeeps with the stars buzzing around, and everything's just military. It's all military stuff. It's quite bizarre. It's quite surreal. And the immigration people, they weren't used to dealing with passports, or especially, English passports. And it took them ages to process us. And there's lots of frowns and shouting, and you're just oblivious to it all. You don't have you. And of course, as a kind of a youngster, you just don't care. It's like you're having the crack. It's like whatever, you just go with the flow, right? Of course, it's a bit boring sitting around the airport for a while. There was an Irish pub even then. So we're talking back in when are we talking? The 90s, 96, 97, yeah, late 90s, I suppose. I'm not one that's ever remembered, specific dates, but it was going to be the late 90s. So yeah, with this Aeroflot flight, the air hostesses were like just grumpy old dinner ladies, and there was hardly any service anyway. It was just it was so bland. It was and of course, my dad told me years later that before the aircraft could take off, they were trying to start one of the engines for ages, and eventually they got it going. This big puff of black smoke came pouring out of the engine, and this is my dad watching his son go off to Southeast Asia from Heathrow Airport. But he always used to laugh when he told me the story. He didn't seem to think it was, but that's it. You don't care. I'm petrified of flying these days. I hate it. I really hate it. But then you just don't care. And I remember there's all these students, that there were the kind of Russian students as well on the aircraft that we were on. And, as soon as it had got up in the air and the seatbelt sign had gone off, it was just us, and then a few other random people, and this big mass of students. Well, of course, they all got up out of their seats and went all the way went to the backs to start smoking. Yeah, of course, I was one of them at that time. So and the air hostess is looking out. she's this all the weight is at the back of the plane now. The plane. We don't care. We don't give a toss. We're just loving it. So yeah, they got off at one particular stop. I can't remember where. But this is it. I can't even remember where we were supposed to stop off. But as I said, we'd stop at and sometimes we'd be just on the tarmac for hours. We wouldn't know. We'd ask, and they wouldn't. Just grumpy, stern faces. But yeah, eventually you arrive in Bangkok, and green fields and stuff, and yeah. It was the craziness started. Let's just catch up with you and chat a minute. That's that part of the story told. Oh, well, our beef. Wind chill is -40s. Oh, gosh. Okay. Hello from New York. Nice one. Should love stood. Desert diagnostics from. Coming from. Okay. Yeah. Okay, just chatting amongst yourself. Okay. Yeah. I do remember coming, and then the next year getting a Biman flight, and when you get to because Biman is Sri Lankan Airlines, another cheap flight. Then again, similar thing where you're stopping many more times than they tell you that you're going to stop. Who knows what for? But you come down into the Sri Lankan airport, and it literally is a runway in between paddy fields. You come down and you see the guys with their ploughing the fields with the buffaloes right there. It's right in the middle of them. And I remember just in Bangladesh, just you get off the plane and you can see like there's this chain link fence, and there's just hordes of people, Bangladeshis, I suppose, just clinging onto the chain link fence, looking, watching. So I suppose, this, however often the aircraft arrived, I'm not sure, but maybe for them it was just like this sight to behold, to see, and of course see the plane regurgitating these foreign tourists. And I can't remember what the airport was like at all, but oh no, I do remember actually. There was a couple of people, I met up with a couple of people on the plane. We were talking. They had some. I think they were sipping codeine in a medicinal bottle as they were going through, and we ended up in the VIP tea lounge. Oh, come on up to the VIP lounge. Of course, I'm thinking, oh fuck, we're going to get ripped off here. But they brought us these pots of tea with oodles of loads and loads of bags of tea bags, just suspended in there, and it was like £1 a pot or something like this, something like that, So yeah, we sat there in comfort, but it's like, wow, that was, to see. There was a contrast between the haves and the have-nots. Just that was you could see that even just from the airport. As I said, all these people on around the outside. So yeah. And so it's you come with this kind of idea that you're going to explore and discover things, and ultimately you discover a lot of things about yourself, I suppose, as well. But that all takes time. That takes years and years and years. And then of course it is the culture shock is a weird phrase, because a lot of the time you don't realize that you're having a culture shock, because what's happening is you react to things in the way you would do at home, or these situations arise which make you think that something's going on, but it's not. So you get you don't understand the culture, or you're just not familiar with it, so things set you off. So yeah, I do remember the first thing I saw in once we got a taxi to we went to Banglampu is the kind of backpackers place. Just didn't know where else to go really, and so got a taxi. I just remember getting out of the taxi, and the first thing I saw was just one of those electricity pylons things, in the middle of just a mass of wires, and it was just a mess. And of course, in those days, you could get cassette tapes. The street would have these stalls where you could buy the cassette tapes, copies of the latest, whatever. So and CDs as well. So you could do all that on Khao San Road. Down in Bang Rampu. But that's actually a very historical area of Bangkok, actually. I mean, it's got it's near a lot of the old royal stuff, palaces and things like that. So it's actually steeped in history, that area of Bangkok. I remember the first time of course, after a while, I had to go and start looking for work. I didn't arrive with that much money, but I had to go and find work. And there were a few language schools in various places in the city. I remember getting on the bus one day and I never got to my destination. I'd made an appointment for an interview, and of course it's all just phone calls then, the bus ends up going from to the the outskirts of Bangkok on this bus, just not knowing. And of course the conductor, I couldn't tell the conductor where I was going. The conductor couldn't speak, and we ended up kind of just arriving at this kind of just place in the middle of nowhere, and they said, you've got to get off. So eventually I suppose I got a bus back eventually, just one that was going back the other way. But these are the things you're confronted by. You just have to work out. And then the rains would come. So I remember just stood at the bus stop once, and then it started pouring down with rain. And within 5-10 minutes, the water is already coming up. It's covered the road and everything. So you've got this kind of, the roads turn into a river. But the thing is, a lot of the roads in that area are built, they're just concrete slabs over old canals. So they used to call Bangkok the Venice of the East. It was just, everyone used to get about on on the canals. That was there, just like Venice. So it was all done on boats and things like that. The market stalls would be people on boats and what have you. But that, of course, they got paved over. So the canals were still there, just under these big concrete slabs that made up the roads. So of course, when it rained, it would just all fill up. And then I just stood at this bus stop, and of course, all the cockroaches start escaping the water. They're getting flooded out, and they come pouring out of the drain holes in the pavement. And if you're standing at the bus stop, then they just climb up. The first thing that they can see is dry, that's get to help them. So they're just climbing up, and just literally climbing up people, and we're all kind of there at the bus stop back. There's one guy, I can see climbing up this woman. I want to try and brush it off a bit, and I know I'm not really supposed to kind of like be going and touching women that I don't, So I was like, it's funny, you're in a situation where you want to help someone out. She's freaking out because there's cockroaches all over. I thought, well, do I brush that one off and freak her out even more, or what do I do? But I think I can't remember exactly what happened. I don't think I helped her in the end. But it's just, it's really raw. You're confronted with all these things. You see such a raw life. You see poverty. You see people, so I remember seeing a guy, because there's a lot of people that the really kind of poor end, they'll be going through the rubbish, right? They'll be going, their livelihood is getting the plastic or whatever it is that they can recycle, cardboard and things from the rubbish, the skips or wherever it might be, and they take, so they spend the whole day rummaging through rubbish, and then they go and sell that to recycling places, and they get their money like that. I just remember being on the bus once and seeing this guy. He had this, it was just like his skin looked like hundreds of half-filled balloons half filled with water, just all over his body, everywhere. Like this trash collecting guy. I suppose it was some kind of something he picked up from, who knows, I don't know, but this is the kind of, it's just you're going down you're in it, so you're seeing all these kind of glassy buildings, and of course sometimes I ended up working in some of these places, teaching and doing training courses hotels and businesses and things like that. But then you're just seeing these two opposing ways of life. The contrasts that you see there are just, they are outstanding. It's crazy stuff. Just crazy stuff. We used to, and even traveling on the canal, they still have these boats that go up and down the canals. Some of these canals in Bangkok, and they're just black. These canals are black they're just horrible. But the lack of regulations. For these canal boats, they were just these massive long boats. The same on the Chao Phraya River as well. Sometimes I'd have to get those kind of boats to go across the river to various, to go and get work or whatever it might, but they would always just be they would just be racing. They would always just be, so you're at this jetty, it's like a floating jetty on the thing, and you've got to basically, everyone has to hop off as quick as they pull in, they go, and they're there, and then they're ready to go, and they're just waiting for everyone that's on there to get off, and then everyone that's waiting to get on, they get on. It's a bit of a kind of squeeze on the back of this boat, and then off they go. So people end up in the water all the time. They fall in and stuff, and of course it's just very dangerous. And they really, it's inches, that you have left over sometimes when they charge through these narrow ways. It's just, but that's the kind of, when you don't have a car and you don't even have a motorbike, and it's like, that's the public transport, planes, trains and automobiles. No automobiles, that's the thing. Trains were good, had to get on the trains to go down. So after 3 months, I think, what did I do? I was in Bangkok, and then I went down to the islands, to Samui and Koh Phangan, and yes, I had a go at the full moon party, and it's like, a lot of people just there for the party, and it was fun for what it was. But that was, that's like, okay, been there, seen it, done it. Stayed up all night, drank the special drinks and all that, and had a whale of a time. But then the thing is, the beach in the morning, the beach is just littered with plastic bottles, so it's just like that movie, The Beach, it's just hedonism, really, in the end. That's all these people are after. They're not after, a lot of them are just there to party. And I remember after several years being, I was already, by the time I had my wife, and we were living in a small place, and then some old friends that I'd known from France, they came to visit, but there's me kind of being a family man now, and these guys were still, they just wanted to party, and so they went off down to the islands, it's but I always was trying to learn Thai as soon as I got here, before I came, and then it was just one by one word a day. You pick it up, and it's just getting yourself into those situations. And when certain words go through my head, I remember the situation that I learned the word, so it's a picture in my head. It's like a movie, certain phrases, and then it connects and it makes sense. But there was one of the guest house I stayed in there was, it's funny, next door was a guest house that didn't have any kind of signage on it or anything like that, and there were always a lot of Africans hanging around. Came to light that like every month or so, like a whole bunch of Africans would turn up, and they'd be hanging around for a while, a few days, and then boom, suddenly they're gone. the soy was quiet again. And yeah, they were the drug runners. Yeah, they were coming in from, I don't know, wherever it was, Lagos, Nigeria. I honestly don't know where from, but then they would hang around for a few days and they'd be off, and then the ringleaders would sit around and watch the TV to see who got busted, because always they would, someone would always get busted. But of course, most probably didn't. So there would always be I suppose someone that, it was someone had to get it. Yeah. So that was thing that was there, right? That was all going on. You're right there where these things are happening. They're going on. You're not involved in it, but it's you see the people involved. You see that kind of stuff going on, and yeah, there's a lot of nutters, that are just kind of doing whatever. Wow, it's mental what people get involved in. Yeah, I remember. I mean, one of the guest houses down in Bang Lampu, he was a Dutch comedian. Everyone knew who he was, but and him and another guy, they would just be there drinking all day, every day. I mean, one guy, his little room would open up, and he'd just basically open up the thing and then fall to the bar and start drinking. It's just like, yeah, and people die there. They just, yeah, it's just you see some messed up stuff. But I remember another guy, who's obviously, I wonder how he's doing these days, but you could walk through this temple from the guest house to the main streets. Oh, things falling off the tree there. And so he started selling books. So he would obviously people are traveling and they're exchanging books and stuff. So he was building up this collection of books, and he put it on this little table out at the temple. And so I remember watching over the months, his collection it got wide. He was selling, he was getting bigger, and so he was selling, and he was obviously okay. But that's the thing. I suppose his collection of books got so big that he would have to think of some alternative kind of arrangement, than because he just couldn't. There were too many to carry down from wherever he was. So I suppose that's how a lot of people end up here. So I remember the first time I earned some money from teaching, and it was just such a mishmash of people in this class. It was a very cheap school, and I think I had about 4 or 5 students, and they really didn't have much English. But one guy kept showing me this book, because there was this one book floating around, which a lot of people, or that was the only thing they had access to English language with, was this kind of very thick book, and it was all these very elaborate, almost kind of colonial style English phrases, translated into Thai. And then so this guy's he wants me to help him, and he had a speech impediment as well. There was something really, it wasn't just that he was Thai, but I think it was the phrase he wanted to learn was, "Would you like to see my wares?" Obviously some market trader or something, but it took ages, because he was trying to say this in this English, and I just, in his very bad English, and I couldn't get where he was coming from until we leafed through his book and he found it and stuff. Yeah. But then sometimes, of course, you get public transport again. You get the buses, and the buses were always crowded. And in those days, I mean, they were speed freaks, as in a lot of them were taking amphetamines. Yeah, a lot of the drivers were taking amphetamines, as well as the canal boat drivers and things. I mean, amphetamine was just rife here before there was a war on drugs, and it's still around. But there was a time when it was out of control. It was just everyone who was any kind of laborer or whatever. They were just all on it, and it's the same as anywhere really. Over time, things happen, big accidents happen, and there's a clamp down, and it becomes more and more. I'm sure it's been the same in other so-called developed nations. It's not until a big accident happens that a law comes into place and restrictions are tightened, and so that's what I've basically seen. It's like going back 100 years or so, and so you see the same developmental process going on, but in this case, it's kind of Bangkok, for example, is like, okay, here, have cars, boom, But before then, they were just trundling about on little rickshaws and things like that, and then suddenly they've got cars, and it's just, of course, so it takes a while to adapt to that, doesn't it? Right? Yeah, what was I going to say about the buses? Yeah, so I used to get on the buses. There were all different kinds of buses. There were these green buses, tiny little green buses. They used to bomb around. They didn't care. In and out of the traffic, weaving in and out. If you wanted to get somewhere quick, you got a green bus, yeah, and you could smoke on them and things like that. They were just because the drivers are getting paid per round trip. So, of course, they're racing to want to get an extra trip or two into their day rather than being paid an hourly rate. Yeah. So what you have is the driver, and then you've got the conductor, and they have these long tubes full of the coins and the tickets, and they just go tick tick tick. They're opening and closing the lids on these tubes, going up and down the thing, tick 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 tick. So yeah, green buses and the red buses, I would get on there. I remember one thing that was funny, or one of those cultural things was I was stood on the bus, no seating room anymore. So I had my little briefcase, and they call that kabao, James Bond. A James Bond bag is what they refer to as a briefcase. So there I am holding it on the bus. I'm holding up there, right, and so I feel a tug on my bag. And I look round, and it's someone who sat down, and they've got other bags on their lap, and they will look after your bag for you, and they're just being nice. It's not about, they're not going to steal it or anything like that. It's just one of those things they do on buses. Is okay, someone's standing, they've got all this luggage. Well, I'll help you carry your luggage as I'm sitting down. So that was, oh wow, okay, that was one of those pleasant surprises. Originally thinking I was going to have my bag lifted, and it was actually someone just wanted to help me out, because I'd be stood on these buses and I'd be like this, because I couldn't, I was just too tall. And I remember one time the conductor's shuffling us all forward. We're all squashed in like sardines, There's no maximum limit or anything like that. It's just whatever, as many as they can get in. So of course I'm getting shuffled up. As you get up to the front, the headspace is getting less and less and less, because you've got the engine is taking up more floor space. But then I found myself, I'm actually there looking out of the skylight. So my head is in the skylight. I felt like a right turkey, and they must have been pissing themselves in the bus, looking at me, looking at this Farang with his head stuck out of the skylight. They're all kind of like, they're all hanging on like that, but there's me. So it wasn't only being a foreigner; it was being a tall foreigner was always a recipe for embarrassing situations. But this is it, every day is an amazing experience, because something you experience something new, or it's like, some people have never seen a foreigner in their life, they're just blown away. So that's the thing as well, you learn to, because obviously you can, that kind of attention can massage your ego as well. I never felt like that, but I always felt kind of more self-conscious, just, you're sticking out like a sore thumb. I remember another time, of course, maps and things like that. You carry a map around, you can't get anywhere with a map. It's funny, there's maps of Bangkok, and you're trying to find, no, it doesn't work. And people, you ask someone that no one no one's ever used a map. The Thais don't use maps. They don't know what to do with them. So you're there and you're sweating away, and you're just all, and you're like, you're just freaking out, and it's like, you're trying to find you, and people are, that's the thing. So you got to, sometimes you've gotten off a bus. Okay, you managed to get a bus to a particular point, but then for whatever reason they've pushed you off the bus. You don't know why. You know you're not where you're supposed to be. And so I'm there. I remember just being there at this bus stop on the course. There's chaos, the traffic. They're building these big motorways, and it's like a 6-road crossroads. I'm on the side there. It's all dusty, and I'm scratching my head with this map. And then this whole gang of boys started coming towards me. And I'm thinking, oh man, what's happening now? Well, it turns out that the thing is they wanted to help. They could see that I was lost, but they wanted to help, but they didn't have they couldn't communicate. They didn't know how to speak English, and I didn't have enough Thai then. And then later on, an older gentleman came along who could speak some English, and he explained to me. He said, "Oh, these guys, they want to help you. And are you lost? Are you okay?" It's just, again, another one of those kind of culture shock things. But often, sometimes you might be, because you're walking somewhere, you're pouring in sweat. You're supposed to be going some gig with a shirt and tie. I think you dressed up in a shirt and tie, we're just drenched. And so you're trying to find your way, and you stop and ask someone. I mean, just plucking up the courage to stop and ask someone is like, that takes long enough. And then you ask them, and if they don't know what you're asking, or whatever, they'll rather than lose face and say I don't know, they'll just point you in any direction that you might want to go, that way. So and then you end up spending another half an hour going on in another direction, more sweat, and you just Absolutely. But this is it. These are the kinds of things you put yourself through. You do have to leave your comfort zone, and eventually, of course, it becomes familiar. But it takes so long. Yeah. Hi, Boom Me. Hi. Just going back through the chat. What's that one, man? So many in India asked me, "Sir, are you movie star?" Which I answered, no, nobody just like you. Which, when I think about it, wasn't a really. Oh no, that's okay. I mean, no, it's good, isn't it? You're right. It's good to kind of say, yeah, we're just all people, isn't it? Yeah. I never spent much time in India, and obviously a lot of people have, and they've gotten a lot out of it. Yeah. Sounds like a big radio float plane back there. Yeah. What's that? Turned over 3 times in a put in India. I remember being brilliant. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it, how we can the things, what we put ourselves through. I suppose a lot of you are probably, what are you that are watching, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. So we've all been through those kind of crazy situations that yeah. I'm trying to think about how much should I reveal about some of the things I did get up to. I suppose it's just, all in all, it's just actually, if you can survive Bangkok, because it does chew you up and try and spit you out. And I'm sure it's just, if you've been anywhere, I mean, I'm sure maybe parts of London are the same. Growing up in the city is tough, isn't it? Anywhere, it's rough. Yeah, there's you got to deal with all sorts of things. Yeah, so it was years before I had my own. I remember just getting my first motorbike, because of course you have to be, in order to get these things, a motorbike or whatever, you have to have some kind of set stability. You have to have a regular job and things like that. So yeah, I mean, that was a big event. Just getting my first little moped, it just made life so much easier. I could get places. Yeah, What's that, TP? When I went clubbing in Bangkok with my hubby, the locals thought he was Robbie Williams, so we played along. Nice one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Hello there. Hi, Stephen. Yeah. Oh, nice one. Yeah. 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 Mad stuff happens in Bangkok. But yeah. I'm trying to think of anything kind of really stands out, but it's just ladyboys. Of course, you see ladyboys for the first time, and it's you've got to be careful. But that's the thing. They really are on the prowl a lot of the time. They're just out to really. They lead a very expensive lifestyle, yeah. So they're really out to stitch people up. And of course they'll prey on people. I never enjoyed getting drunk out of my mind. I wouldn't. No, I would. Yeah, I'd have a few drinks, but I was never that. Never let myself get to that point where I didn't know what was going on. It's just like you can just see people setting themselves up to be a victim. And the thing is, I suppose, it did take a long time for me to really start to see the kind of the more conservative, the real Buddhist kind of side of thing. Of course, you're just when you're in the thick of that kind of, when you're in that kind of hub that Bang Lampu is, then and as I said, there's a very raw kind of lifestyle going on. I remember on the corner of the temple there was the corner of the road where the guest house was, massive banyan tree. Obviously it must have been like several hundred years old, but that's where all the fruit bats lived. So this is right in the city, but there's this banyan tree. They don't cut down banyan trees. It's really bad luck. The trees that have all these roots coming down, so. But yeah, I mean, the road was covered in droppings because that's where the fruit bats hung out. You couldn't really see them until they started flying away at night. My first child, I delivered her myself. It was just me and my wife in our small apartment. Yeah, it was just me and her, and out popped my daughter. We were both fairly young, in our 20s, and what was it? I mean, it was just, of course, so naive about everything at the time, about how to go about doing things, and I mean, a friend had taken my wife to the hospital before, just to kind of like register for, what was it, prenatal, whatever. They just, so okay, that's the hospital I'm going to go to. But yeah, when it came time to it, there was, it's like, she woke up and she was having contractions, and it was all happening, and I'm like, oh my god! I got on the phone. I tried to call the hospital. I said, my wife's, in my kind of very bad Thai at the time, was saying, oh, wife's got tummy ache, it's because it's like, they're like, what? And I'm trying to explain, and eventually getting the point across. She's just flashing about on the bed, and there's me trying to talk to the people at the hospital, say, well, send an ambulance, and they're like, we don't have any. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm in the end, I just put the phone down and gave up, and I'm like, I've got to get to this. And out she popped, and I've hunted around for some string to tie up the umbilical cord, and then cut it and gave her a shower, and then a while later we turned up at the hospital with our baby already born. And it took them a while to kind of work out what was actually going on, but they eventually got it, that we'd given, my wife had given birth on the bed in the apartment room. So Yeah. That's yeah. So it probably wouldn't have happened if we were all very safely, in the UK or whatever. But that's the way it was where we were. It's just a one-room apartment. We just had a bed and a little shower room, a toilet with a shower room. Yeah. So my daughter's first shower was a cold shower. Wrapped her up, and of course, I remember just taking her out. We were going to the hospital. And of course, after that, all the kind of neighbours, they all came looking. Everyone's there's a whole massive crowd of people outside the door. They were gawking and stuff. And but eventually said, "Well, you've got to get to the hospital now." Yeah, right. Yeah, okay, we'll go. Wrapped her up, but then of course, it's just like you're out there and you're on the road, and it's so loud. It's wow, 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 and there's smoke, all these tuk-tuks and motorcycles and stuff. So it was just terrifying, to be holding this precious thing and trying to negotiate. Just there on the side of the road, and eventually we got a tuk-tuk and went to the hospital. Anyway, so yeah, that was that. But yeah, it was in those days that you'd have a lot of motorcycle races. The kids were dying all the time on the motorbikes and stuff. I mean, you still hear a horrific story this morning. A whole family that are on a motorbike got killed, wiped out, squished. It's just boom. That kind of stuff happens here all the time, doubt if they even keep many. Well, they do keep statistics, and it's thousands a year. But yeah, I remember the kids would ride their motorbikes. Of course, they kind of lie down on their bikes and they take these long streets, and I saw some horrific things on the roads. Even then, going back down to the islands from Bangkok down south, I mean, it's just literally just one dirt road, so you'd be on this bus for like 12-15 hours, and it's just such a hairy journey because most of it's at night, and all you can see is it's just dusty, and you've got these headlights that are just it's just wow. And again, they're probably doing their billy whiz to keep themselves awake. I mean, but luckily, again, survived those things. So, again, you don't really think about it too much when you're young. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm just looking through the chat again. Yeah. What's a banyan tree? Oh, the banyan tree is it's a massive tree that it's like it's a whole mass of roots. It's kind of they start off small, but they just grow outwards and outwards and outwards. They get really fat, but it's just because they're the tendrils, kind of the tree grows, and then these tendrils grow down and they become roots. So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So they become really wide. And so, they have a big canopy, but they're roots. So the lower branches produce these tendrils, which become thick roots. Yeah. So, and you'll often see them in Thailand with the, the sashes around them. So that's another thing, it's believed that, spirits will reside within trees, and there are consequences for chopping down trees and things. And this is whenever they do a construction project, or whenever they're going to do something with the land, they'll it's just a prerequisite that you would ask for permission to do what you're going to do from the whatever spirit guardian is looking after that place. It could be ancestral grounds, it could be anything, but it's basically anything that's old, whether it's living thing or even an old thing, if it's a house or if it's a tree or whatever, it has an owner in the spirit realm. Yeah. So, and regardless of what you might believe, it you see, it works because there's this whole thing about that, just, you're in intention. So if you have a piece of land, even if you've bought the piece of land and you want to build something on it, you're going to, first of all, before you do anything else, is have a ceremony. You're going to kind of maybe have this spirit house, and you're going to make some food offerings, and you might bring the monks in, you might not, it doesn't matter, you don't have to, but the whole point is to make offerings and then ask for permission from whatever spirit guardian is looking after the place that you're intending to do something with. And that's how they do it there. There was a big crossroads in Bangkok. You might have heard about it before because there was some incident there years ago where there's been bombings there, and there's this kind of big Erawan crossroads, and lots of buildings, high-rise buildings around there. But apparently for a long time there was a lot of construction accidents and stuff. So eventually they decided to put this shrine there, and it's now become a very, very popular place, the Erawan Shrine. So it's more of a kind of Hindu deity that they've got there rather than a Thai one. Well, that's the thing. It's all kind of mishmash, Hinduism and Buddhism. So they say, things have been better. There haven't been so many accidents and stuff since that was there. So so I remember a taxi driver asked me once. It's funny because when you're in a taxi, whenever these taxi drivers go past these places, you're coming up to a crossroads. The taxi driver is he's whining. He takes his hands off the wheel and starts whining at the thing as we're driving past it. You're just in the back there thinking, oh God. It's just the way things are. It's a safer option to why to the spirit than to worry about keeping the hands on the wheel as you cross across the busy intersection. But I remember him saying, don't you do that in the West? Don't you kind of, before you build places, don't you pay respects and have these shrines and things? And I'm thinking, well, no, we don't. But it's just a different thing, I like it though. I think I find it, it's again, it doesn't matter what belief or imagery that there is behind it. The whole thing is intention. If you're going to, and again, you do hear all these stories of people that have done things to nature disrespectfully, and that's earned them some bad karma. Yeah. So and yeah. So either way, there's more. That's the thing. There's more respect in the culture for that whole what am I trying to say? Understanding that intent is much more of a power. It is a powerful force in our lives. Yeah. So yeah, in the early days, I mean, there was nothing, there was no nothing in the English language that I could really. There was the Bangkok Post, I suppose, but there was nothing. There was no TV or really radio. So you're really totally immersed in the culture. Yeah, you have to really, and that helped, because if you wanted to eat, you had to speak, and so you get to know people, and you get to learn about the culture more that way, just because you become part of it. Yeah. So yeah, even then, okay, being a father and all that is kind of like, it's there's still so much to learn. It's just about being a father, being in a foreign country, being a father or a husband to a Thai. I mean, we still, there's still things that come up. We've got pears falling out of the tree there all the time that I have to realize that are, conflicts of our different cultures, just the different ways we've been brought up. So, in a way, it's really my job to try and understand and respect that. I can't expect her to understand where my thought process is coming from a lot of the time, because it's totally alien to her. Yeah. And I'm here. So it's funny, even though, there are certain roles that you're expected to fulfill as a male. So that's the thing. I'd be struggling to even know how to go about doing certain things just because of being, not being familiar with the way things work. So yeah, it's always an adventure. Yeah. Right. Yeah, yeah, reincarnation. Yeah, definitely. That's for sure part of it. Part of the belief here. Yeah. But it's still misunderstood by the West as far as, the whole idea of karma and reincarnation, and again, there's a lot of folklore and stories, which, again, you can take with a pinch of salt, like any other kind of religion. I think ultimately, there's things all over the place. Ultimately, there's, this is it. Your karma is meted out here often in life, and these things will transpire because of your karma. So it's your doing, and whatever you do is going to come back at you somehow, even if you don't realize that it's happening to you. That can often be the case. Yeah. So yeah, hang on, I'm just going through the chat there. Are you so hi? Who's that? You're asking. I can't read the name. It's Alan, or is it more 777? What's your opinion on reincarnation? Well, yeah, this is it. I think I try not to have beliefs or opinions, but as I said, as far as there's an understanding that a life force will come around and around, whether it transfers from animal to human, and whether you could say, no one says that, if you do this, you're going to then become that, or, it's not really a lot of, I think you often hear in the West, people assuming that, if you do bad things in this life, you then become a slug and you get stamped on in the next life. It's not, it's not necessarily thought of like that. But the whole, it's seen as basically, we are, wherever you are in your life and your life in general, then it's a step, it's part of a process that your life spirit is going through. And there's not to say whether being one thing or another is any better. It might be better to be a slug. Who knows? It might be a right crack to be a slug. Yeah, might be really cool. Who knows? But might be really trippy. You're just, who knows? It might be just. How would we know? Yeah. So. Yeah, there's no one saying, you're going to be this or that. It's just, and it's funny because the afterlife and eternity, heaven and hell. Apparently, Buddha never went there. He was never going to answer any questions. What happens to us when we die? Where do we go? It's just not part of anything that we can understand in this experience. We're not. So again, there's I suppose there's a kind of suffering in this desire to know what's next. What am I doing in this life to create good karma for the next life? And that of course, that's a form of suffering, and that's not how it's supposed to be. You're just, it's going to happen to you. Your life is going to happen to you. So you can't really intentionally earn yourself good karma. You can't. That's the thing. You just by going and doing something good for the sake of it is not going to earn you the good karma. It's probably going to create some other kind of other form of suffering. So that's the thing. The whole thing. This life, whatever it is. I mean, if you're it's understood that we are born into an illusion. We're born into a life that is we're going to experience suffering. And even if that's, we seem to have a good life or a wealthy life, the suffering might be even worse. You have so much to start with and you lose a lot. But so whatever, life is, it is kind of assumed that it is you are living out your karma from a previous existence. So again, there's more of this acceptance of it, But then I was just the other day, I was remembering how I've seen a motorcycle mechanic with no arms, just using his feet, to do nuts and bolts and do everything, fixing motorbikes, putting chains on and fixing brake wires and all this stuff with 2 legs, no arms. Just getting on with it. Yeah. Didn't have his hand out. He just, would. It's funny, isn't it? Because if you saw someone in the Western world like that, you would pity them. You would want them to. You would expect that they would be looked after, and they shouldn't have to work, and so it's kind of, well, then, so someone's disabled, but then does that mean that they should then kind of live a life that's not productive? Do you see what I mean? It's like you live in a different society where kindness or sympathy, empathy can have a kind of reverse effect. There's this guy with no arms, but he's happy. He's doing his thing. He's earning money. It's kind of, I was just trying to compare how someone in that situation might be in the developed world. They probably wouldn't be working in that situation because people would feel so sorry for them that they wouldn't allow it. And so, do you see what I mean? Again, I'm just playing with the idea, but that's the kind of thing you see here. It's just when you don't have the choice to sit on your ass and have handouts, no matter what your physical or mental condition, then you got to get up there and do stuff. Yeah, just got to do your thing, whatever it is. Okay, Russ. Yeah. It's nice to see. It's nice to see this is kind of stimulating some conversation in chat. That's great. Sorry if I'm not paying attention to it, but too much. Lefties be reeling in their cars too, though. But it'd be a nice one, I say. Oh yeah. So there's a lot more of kind of acceptance of, okay, this is my lot, this is my karma, this is what I got to do, and I've got to get through it, and so you end up putting up with a lot, I'm glad I had to kind of go through many of those things that have been a struggle. I mean, it's bad enough not having money sometimes, but then in a foreign place. But that's when beautiful moments happen. It's like, wow, just so many times I've had people help out that it's just, whether it might be a meal, it might be this or that. It's just, that's the thing. You have these interactions that have so much more meaning than popping down to the shops and buying something from someone, or even a till that's not a person anymore, but someone who's just totally uninterested. I mean, it's just like, that's the thing. You walk out your door, you're going to have a personal interaction with someone, because it's just so full on. I mean, Bangkok especially is just, I mean, we're talking like 10 million people packed into that city, yeah? And the only times I would see the roads quiet would be there would be a royal cavalcade or something going through. So yes, and then the police were very coordinated in that respect. They had it. They kudos to them, because they would, so let's say some royal person is going from one end of town to the other, or back to the palace, or going to whatever they've got to do, their kind of events. And the royal family here do work very hard every day. They're out meeting people, and they're out doing stuff and making donations, and so they go all over the country every day. They're going places, doing stuff that's kind of so. So they're traveling in Bangkok. Excuse me. The police would coordinate it so that the roads would be clear. So these massively congested streets, they would enable them to be cleared. And they'd set the path that they were going to go, and then as soon, once the cavalcade's gone through, then it's like everything. It's like the traffic opening up for a fire engine or an ambulance or something. But the thing is, there is no cars on the sides of the roads either. So so they were very efficient in that respect. And then so for about 10 minutes, suddenly everything go quiet, no cars, and you'd wait there, and the cavalcade would come past, and then boom, things would be buzzing back to normal again. Always some magical interactions. Isa, what's upsetting is some charity scam will be like, look at this Thai child mate, their own mask from garbage just to do this. Right, yeah. So you're saying, I say, yeah, the kind of the whole, these things will happen, won't they? That's the thing about that we had when child labor is a weird thing, because sure, I mean, I'm not advocating that children be working in factories and things like that, but it's like often children are very. So as I was sharing the other day, there's a guy that's delivering fish, and so families will have their own thing that they do, whatever it is they sell. Their house might be some place where something's prepared. It's a step on a mountain. I remember I used to go to a plaster place that would make lukchin, fish balls. I would walk past this place every day. So it's just a townhouse, and they so obviously I suppose they were the fish. They were buying the fish, whatever they were doing, they were processing it there, and they were making these fish balls and then packaging them up. So it was all happening in a townhouse. It was a family operation, and so it's of course children get involved, right, with that kind of family business. They're helping out. They might be just there, putting things in bags. It's just something they do because they're doing what mum and dad do. It becomes play. It becomes so. That's not necessarily child labor. Of course, they might end up doing that, and it becomes a kind of regular thing, and they're helping out. Obviously, what's really sad is a lot of the times at the crossroads, especially in the city, you have these kids selling the garlands the kind of jasmine flowers. So you can see I've been kind of living close to families, you might see them doing that. So you might have a whole family that collectively, you've got grandma, daughter-in-law, and whatever. They're all just sitting around making these garlands throughout the day, which are then being sold at the crossroads. Sometimes they leave the kids to do it. That's really sad to see children at these crossroads. It's smoky, it's dangerous for a start, of course, and they're there selling the garlands, and basically they've got to sell them all and before they're allowed to go home. So sometimes they're there in their school uniform. They've come from school and they're there. That's what they've got to do. And it's like, sure, I don't agree with that. It's like, then again, sometimes that's kind of the situation is like, it's weird. It just might be the only way that those people make money. And as I said, it could be a whole kind of family. The whole family's involved in it just sitting around making them, and then so no, but the kids shouldn't be out there in the streets, of course, but I'm just kind of explain how it could end up being like that sometimes, and so people, sometimes a whole family, four, five, six people, their only mode of transport might be a motorbike, and a really crappy one at that they've got to constantly fix and repair and things. So, sometimes, I mean, for example, these people are kind of breaking all sorts of rules and laws and stuff on the road, but the police are never going to bother them because, well, they're not going to have the money to pay the fines anyway. So it's like, it doesn't get anyone anywhere. Yeah. So, what's that, Russ? Oh, hang on. We've got. You worked as a. Sorry, I can't see that. It was Kylie. I worked as a kid, and it's definitely more important than learning government-funded fake history. Nice one. Yeah, cool. Orbs Ram, hi. Good to see you. Okay, thanks. Okay. Yeah, kids, what's that, Isaac? Kids need money to feed their family. What a sad state of affairs, brother. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's kind of... Yeah, sure. Obviously, in situations like that, occasionally I've bought them. Yeah, and again, what do you do? Do you take that stance where I'm not going to support it or encourage it? Well, the thing is, if you don't, then you leave that kid on the street longer. So there's been times when you just buy the whole lot, and it's like, so the kid can go home, or at least maybe give the kid some food or some milk that rather than, because any money they take is going to have to go back to the parents, and they're going to know how much they're supposed to have. And so sure, it's just every situation is different, and you can never tar everyone with the same brush, but yeah, I definitely think, obviously, if you can work when you're a kid, and just part-time jobs and things like that, get into it, then it's all very good stuff, isn't it? Yeah, my daughter started working in coffee shops and things like that, when she was a teenager, and so yeah. Yeah, it is a conundrum. Yeah, it is, so you kind of it's yeah, you just see. I remember watching it's weird to explain, but there's just kind of this market area in Bangkok. I remember seeing this. But there's, all the traders are there. So often the traders, so you were talking about on the corner of these streets, so you got the umbrellas and things like that. So a lot of the time the traders, if they've got kids, then, well, the safest place for the kid to be is with the mother, right? Who knows whatever the father's doing. Anyway, whoever, they might be single parents, who knows. But of course, the kid, so there's the parent manning their stall. So the kid has to be there. But I just remember, it just stood out to me that I remember seeing this kid was there, grubby. She'd been playing around on the floor and was just on the street, she was just there crying. I mean, the area itself was very familiar to her because she was always there, but to anyone else looking from the outside, it's like, there's a girl sat in the middle of the street, or the pavement, the sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, being ignored, because obviously she's just whatever, just being a kid anyway, but it just so happens to be in that situation. I remember seeing this other foreigner just watching, and he was just stood there he was aghast at the scene that he was witnessing, but I was watching him watching the scene. You see what I mean? And it was just it was a very striking scene for him to see this kind of young girl, grubby, sat in the middle of the street and kind of crying, playing up, but without and she would have seemed alone, but the mother, of course, was right there. But the mother was doing the kind of ignore the daughter playing a tantrum kind of scene. Yeah. It's good that when you get to know some Thai, that really helps, because I remember, for example, you get motorcycle taxis. They're frightening things. Getting the motorcycle. Again, that would be the quickest way to get around. So you're off to a job, and then you'd have to get on the back of a motorbike taxi. So a lot of the time, these guys were in the old days. They didn't have any real kind of qualification. They could be anybody. So I remember sometimes I would get on this bike, and he'd say, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you know the way, you drive." So there'd be this on this motorbike. I'd be driving, and the motorcycle taxi guy would be on the back. If you tried it, it's just the way it was. But to do that, you'd have to. If you're going to be a motorcycle driver, there would be first of all, you need a bike. But what they do is they would have a vest with the number on it. They'd have a particular number, yeah. So in order to get to be one on that particular, so every motorcycle taxi spot would have, or queue, they would call it a queue, like a line, queue, yeah, would have an owner. So if you want to be on this motorcycle queue, you would have to give some money to the owner of that queue to buy the vest, and basically effectively have the right to be the motorcycle be a motorcycle taxi rider in that particular spot. So they now these days it has been more centralized and become more of a kind of an official thing. But in the past it was very, I suppose you could call it, to call it a mafia thing but it kind of was kind of like that, because you couldn't there was no authority to apply to be a motorcycle taxi driver, but you would just have to, it would just be the money that you gave to that particular person wherever you wanted to be. So then you would stay there, and of course they would have to pay each month to carry on doing it. So that's how that works. Taxi drivers as well, they drive around these nice cars, but the thing is they have to pay for they've got to buy their own the LPG they use. They've got to do they've got to clean it and everything, and they've got to take it back. So it's a lot of upfront costs for them. So they have to get several fares before they can even start making any money for themselves. So it's very, very rough for them before. A lot of these jobs that would be keep you quite well paid in the UK, just they're a struggle here. Yeah. So all right. Desert Diagnostics, I started driving and I really nice. Hey David Marks. Yeah, the mafia got knowledge here. Well, you know what? The thing is, I mean, I've been through several coups here, several military coups, and actually, when when the politicians are fighting, nothing gets done. The whole country's a mess. Yeah, but when the army's running it, when the military government is running, and it's not a politicized one, things just get done. Yeah, it's more of it's more just administration, and there's no interference with daily life. Apart from things do get better, as I said, things just become more legitimate and more. So it's like, actually, it's very, under military rule, it's very peaceful times, because when you have the government, I mean, it's horrible when the political parties are fighting. Yeah. Because it just gets messy, yeah. So that's really, it's funny. It's like, wow, you're going to work or you're on the bus or whatever, going down the road, and there's tanks on the side of the road and the army are hanging out. But it's not. That's the thing. It doesn't have the same. It doesn't have that really threatening feel. It doesn't. It's just like, okay, it's a show of force, yeah. and it's a symbol that it's been taken, so what's that? One man and his detector. We all know the jobs that need doing in life. No politics needed. Just absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Really good point. Yeah, and of course, that's the thing. Coming from the West, it's like, when I was first there and I was strutting around, and I thought I thought I was coming from a superior culture. How foolish I was. How silly I was. How naive. How immature I was. But of course, I'm glad to be able to reflect on that, and of course, again, it's that ignorance. It's that kind of, I suppose, it's the kind of the Dunning-Kruger thing where you think you know about something and you don't. You haven't got a clue. And so it is totally different. Yeah, the politics is, and I think, to be honest, in a way, under it's kind of tolerated in a way. It's like, okay, you want to have politics, okay, you can have politics, whatever. That's the thing, really. It's just, all it is just corporations fighting, isn't it? It's just the trust trying to fight for their corporate sponsors and stuff like that. So and it's so it's good. It's good to have experienced that and seen that actually, it's not that bad actually. If a country's just run as a country without all that interference, then things work fine, and it's actually, I mean, look, I mean, at least, Thailand had this whole COVID thing. Thailand had it together way before anyone else, really. And it's funny, in the model, it was the models that these people did. It was Bangkok was considered a real hotspot because someone had flown from there to here, or from Wuhan to here, and then boom, off they go. And it's like, but actually, they were very wrong about how Thailand would handle it, and they did it very well. Whether you believe what it is or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that only now, a year after the fact, do you have the UK doing the whole kind of quarantine hotel thing, whereas that's been in place since for several months, for months and months. Here, that's of course how I was able to get back, because that was in place. So it's all been done without any. That's the thing. It's an administrative thing. It's not a political thing. Yeah. So anyway, I think. Oops, what's happened to the chat? Yeah. Cheese omelette. Steve's having you have an cheese omelette. You're making me hungry now. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's lovely to see so many of you here. Okay. Yeah. It'd be nice to go through the chat a little bit later. It's difficult to go through it right now because I'm going back on old ground otherwise. But I hope that's been a kind of just a I don't know, a bit of background on how I got here, why I'm here. Yeah, it's just it's no big deal. We've all got stories to tell, but I thought, well, okay, it might kind of be fun to listen to. So maybe we'll get into some of the heavier stories and the more lurid ones another time. But I think for now that should be nice. So thanks a lot. I hope you're all having a great weekend, and celestial navigation coming soon. Okay, cheers for now. All right, take care.